Hi, my name is Lindsey Pashow. I'm the Ag Business Development and Marketing Specialist for Cornell Cooperative Extension's Harvest New York team. This workshop is on pricing. When looking to market our product, we always need to look at the 4 P's of marketing: price, product, promotion, and place. People always wonder, how do I figure out pricing for my operation? There's many different ways to figure out pricing for your operation, and you as a farmer need to figure out the best way to figure out your pricing. One way people have done pricing for their operation has been comparing current market prices. So they go to the grocery store, they look in a newspaper, they go to farmers markets and look at vendor pricing to kind of figure out what the pricing is for the current market. However, the best way to figure out pricing is to have an enterprise budget for your operation for each individual crop or value-added product that you're producing. When looking at pricing, we need to ask 2 questions. Does it cover your cost plus pay yourself? Is the price reasonable for your market? If the price is not reasonable for your current market, maybe it's time to find a new market for your product. When looking at pricing, there are so many different factors that you need to consider when figuring out the price for your product. This includes your total operation cost to produce that product, any type of licensing you may be paying for, if you have a mortgage on a building, if you're renting out space, transportation costs to sell that product, and any other type of marketing cost to sell that product. So this tends to be the big scary word for most people when it comes down to figuring out their pricing is enterprise budget. An enterprise budget is basically looking at your overall cost of what it takes for you to be in daily operation of your business, especially over an extended part of the year. So you'll want to have an enterprise budget for the establishment cost of your crop. So example is if you produce a perennial crop, like you grow apples, you grow grapes, you're going to have a cost that's associated with establishing that for your operation. And what's going to happen is you're going to have that establishment cost, and over time you're going to have almost a depreciation cost on that establishment, so that you'll be able to use those numbers to factor in of how much it actually costs for you to produce that product. You're also going to have a yearly enterprise budget. So that yearly enterprise budget is going to be continuously updated. It's going to have 2 factors involved with it: variable and fixed costs. So your variable costs are things that potentially will change from year to year, and costs will change from year to year too. On examples, planting, seed, fertilizer, sprays, different materials you might need. And then your fixed costs will be your repairs and maintenance, the land charge, or additional expenses that you may have would be those fixed costs. And when it comes down to fixed costs, those numbers potentially will change too. Examples would be your land fee may go up for the operation, but they are operational expenses that you'll have from year to year, and that's why they're fixed. People wonder, how do I create an enterprise budget for my operation? Well, what's really nice is over the years, there have been enterprise budgets created for almost every single crop out there. And what basically you just need to do is do a web search and find a reliable source. Usually, a lot of educational institutions have created these enterprise budgets. So examples would be Cornell University, Penn State, UVM, Iowa State University. So many different options out there to find enterprise budgets on the different crop that you might be producing. And then what you can do is adjust that enterprise budget to your operation. And I'm going to show you kind of how you can do that in the next couple slides. So this is an enterprise budget that was created by Penn State for fresh market apple production. And what's nice with these budgets that all these different universities have created is a lot of them are interactive. So basically what you can do is you can see the research that's been created on what it costs for producing this on fixed and variable cost. But then it allows you to have these interactive fields to put your numbers in. So your receipts of how much, you've produced over the years, and how much, lime you've used on your operations, how much it costs for that. And then it will figure out the calculations for you at the end of what those actual total cost, variable cost, and returns on total cost. Now, if it's not interactive, you can always take in, kind of copy and paste almost the fields of the items, and then figure out based on what your operation, like if you're using different types of fertilizer, different insecticides, what your labor, your materials are. And you can factor in those into an Excel document to create your own enterprise budget. So you're not starting from scratch, which is nice on creating an enterprise budget. There's so many different resources out there, so it doesn't have to be an overwhelming experience when it comes down to it. But it's really important to do an enterprise budget if you're really looking to figure out what it costs you to, produce a product, and then from there you'll be able to make a determination on what your price should technically be for your operation. Now, one of the big things that I do want to stress is making sure when you put the labor in, you as the farmer need to factor in your own time. That's the one thing as a farmer that usually gets missed. But if something happens to you during the growing season, you need to hire somebody out to, to do that labor. So it's good to have those numbers already in your budget. So if you're a farmer that also produces a value-added item, you're also going to want to figure out what it costs to produce that value-added item. So this is just a document that I put together to kind of help somebody work through figuring out producing a value-added item. So you want to have like what ingredients you're going to use, the amount needed. I'd suggest keeping documentation of where your purchase location. It's sometimes easier just to keep everything on one sheet. The cost per amount. Also write down any, containers and labels and packaging, and then have a cost that it takes to make the product, a price that you're potentially going to do for retail, and then a price for wholesale. It's always a good idea to have, even though you might not be selling wholesale, factor in what you would potentially sell a product out to wholesale. So here's an example of making a 9-inch apple pie with 2 crusts. So I have my list of ingredients are flour, sugar, salt, butter, water, sugar, flour, cinnamon, and apples. And then the different amounts that are needed for each of them, the purchase location, and then the cost per amount. The one thing I didn't factor in was the time. So you definitely want to factor in how long it's going to take you to make that apple pie. So that would be your labor cost that you're going to want to put into this equation. Then I looked at different options for containers. I just used going to Amazon just because it's, it's got a variety of different options for containers. And then from there, I figured out what it actually costs to make my product. So to make my 9-inch apple pie with 2 crusts, it was $5.06. And then I looked at a couple different other operations that are in the area. I looked at like a local farm stands, and they charge $15.50. And then I looked at a grocery store, and they sell their apple pies for $7.98. So just to see like what my potential market is for selling my apple pies, there definitely is a difference between purchasing something in a grocery store versus a farm stand. Usually at a farm stand, you're always going to, potentially get a higher price point for a product. And then I do want to factor in that I mentioned when it came down to the different ingredients, where those were apples that I found a price on the market basically of how much it was going to be based on an enterprise budget to produce my own apples for my operation. So that's my cost as a farmer on how much it would, take to produce those apples to sell them out to a retail person. So there's many different resources when it comes down to it out there, as I mentioned before. So this is just an example of a document that was created a couple of years ago by myself and a Cornell University intern. And it basically focuses on what it would cost to build a facility for a winery, and it includes information in regards to, different tanks, basically all the equipment that you're going to need. And then it has factor in at the bottom, where you should factor in like the cost for a rental of a facility or building a building. So there's a lot of different resources. If you just spend some time on the internet, you could probably find information on building a facility for a dairy plant or a commercial kitchen. So take advantage of all those different resources that are out there. And I just want to thank everyone for attending this pricing workshop. A lot of when it gets down to pricing is working with people on an individual basis. So I'm happy to work with anyone on an individual basis on figuring out their pricing for their enterprise budget to their value-added products. Again, my name is Lindsey Pashow. I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension's Harvest NY team, and my email address is lep67@cornell.edu, and there's also my phone number listed. Thank you very much.